Hello and welcome to another TLDR US video. On Tuesday, 14 states and 1 territory voted in the primary election, making it the biggest day in the primary process, and unsurprisingly, quite a lot happened there. So today we're going to break down exactly what did happen, and what it means for the candidates, as well as the Democratic Party as a whole moving forward. So if you haven't already, go and check out our video explaining Super Tuesday and why it's important. This can get confusing, so you'll want the context provided in that video. There's a link to it in the description. While you're looking at things down below, you can also hit the subscribe button, because we know that 45% of you haven't. We'll be keeping you up to date on the primary as it continues, so be sure to hit the bell to get all the updates you need. So, what happened on Tuesday? Well, in one word, Biden. After finishing 4th and 5th in Iowa and New Hampshire a few weeks ago, things weren't looking good for Joe Biden. He didn't seem to have the votes, the donations or the money to succeed in the race, and many were beginning to speculate about when he'd drop out. And we couldn't be in a more different place today. At the time of writing, not all of the delegates from Tuesday had been allocated, but it seems clear that Biden massively outperformed expectations. The former vice president won a plurality or majority of the vote in Texas, Oklahoma, Minnesota, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, Alabama, Maine, and Massachusetts. And because of that, he's currently leading the national delegate count with about 430 delegates. Put simply, Biden did very well, especially when you consider the demographics of the states he won, and the fact that the demographics look even better for him in the upcoming states. We'll explain why Biden had such a successful night in a moment, but first, let's take a look at how the other candidates did. Coming in second with a majority or plurality in 4 states was Bernie Sanders, who won the most delegates in Vermont, Utah, Colorado, and crucially California. California is by far the largest state in terms of delegates due to its population, and because of this, his win in the state will have offset some of his other losses, and gives a significant boost to his campaign. But even this wasn't enough to overtake Biden's national lead. This is a somewhat disappointing result for Sanders, as he lost nearly all of the competitive states his campaign was hoping to pick up. The most notable was Texas, the second largest trove of delegates, behind only California. For a few hours after the polls closed, Sanders was in the lead in the Lone Star State, but as more results came in through the night, Biden slowly inched towards Sanders, eventually overtaking his lead. All things considered, this was not a great night for Sanders. He failed to show that he could garner much support from outside his base, and even lost support in some states. In fact, when you compare his 2016 results to 2020, it looks like his base is actually shrinking in some places. Now, some of this could be down to the number of states that have switched from caucuses to primaries, acquiring a larger number of supporters. But regardless, Bernie lost out in a number of states that he won in 2016, and pollsters expected him to snatch again this time round. This isn't the end for Sanders though, and he doesn't appear to be massively behind Biden in the delegate count, with his final number appearing to be around 390. The same can't be said for Elizabeth Warren, who only won about 30 delegates and didn't take home a plurality in any state. This includes her home state of Massachusetts, where she came in third behind both Sanders and Biden, with 23 delegates. This is a devastating blow for the Warren campaign, and leaves her with few options left when it comes to a path to the nomination. Despite this, her campaign's indicated they're considering their position, and that Warren might battle it out and remain in the race all the way up until the convention in July. Whether or not this will actually happen, however, is a question only time will answer. Just a fun side note, ever since Buttigieg and Klobuchar ended their campaigns, Warren, who's currently 70 years old, has been the youngest major candidate running for presidency in either party, and if she was to drop out, President Trump would become the youngest person in the race. This isn't including Tulsi Gabbard, but since the Hawaii congresswoman only won 1 delegate, it's pretty safe to call her a minor candidate. Speaking of Gabbard, the night wasn't wholly disappointing for her. She's still technically in the race, and even has a chance of making the next debate stage. In the South Carolina debate, all candidates who had won any delegates were invited to participate. So if the same rules applied to the next debate in Phoenix, she could be on the debate stage for the first time in months. That's a big if though, and this potential comes from American Samoa, where she came in second and won a single delegate. This is the only delegate she's won so far, so needless to say, things aren't looking great for her overall prospects. Gabbard wasn't the only one to pull a surprise out of American Samoa though. Coming in first in the territory was Mike Bloomberg, who was on the ballot for the first time in the primary. It was also, however, his last time. Having won only 12 delegates and a plurality nowhere beyond American Samoa, he announced on Wednesday that he would be ending his campaign. Despite absolutely massive spending, Bloomberg couldn't seem to garner the momentum or support needed to win the nomination. To be fair to Bloomberg, he said that he'll continue to spend throughout the rest of 2020 to help the eventual nominee beat Trump. His dropping out leaves only Biden, Sanders, Warren and Gabbard in the race, narrowing the once massive field down to only 4. So what does this mean for those 4 going forward? Essentially what it means is that this is likely going to be a 2-person race between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. We don't pick sides or make bets here, but it seems very unlikely at this point that either Warren or Gabbard could make a large enough comeback to win the nomination. So let's take a look at what Tuesday did for these 2 frontrunners. Biden's story over the last week has been quite impressive. Former Democratic National Committee Chair Donna Brazile called Biden's sudden rise the most impressive 72 hours she'd ever seen in politics. And she's not alone in that sentiment. Biden's surge is an amazing political feat, and one that could end up landing him the nomination in July. The sudden spike in support has been caused by a plethora of events. He needed a lot of things to go right for him in order to win on Tuesday, and nearly all of those things happened. His energetic win in South Carolina changed the narrative surrounding him. The ending of Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar's campaigns consolidated the moderate vote around him, and perhaps most significantly, the Democratic Party seems to have rallied around him. In the 48 hours after South Carolina, numerous high-profile Democrats endorsed the former vice president. Buttigieg and Klobuchar both endorsed him on Monday, followed by former congressman and political celebrity Beto O'Rourke, as well as a number of other prominent politicians. Some were even speculating that the former president, Barack Obama, had a hand in all of this, with NBC reporting that Obama appeared to have a quiet hand in Biden's surge of endorsements. Whatever happened behind the scenes, the fact remains, Biden has become the rallying point for much of the Democratic Party. It seems likely that this will only increase as time goes on, especially with Bloomberg's exit and a subsequent endorsement essentially clearing the moderate lane for Biden.
For those who've been knocked down, counted out, left behind, this is your campaign. A few days ago, the press and the pundits had declared the campaign dead. And we're told, well, when it got to Super Tuesday, it'd be over. Well, it may be over for the other guy. But I'm here to report, we are very much alive. And make no mistake about it, this campaign will send Donald Trump packing. This campaign is taking off. Join us.
This is a point that Biden has tried to capitalize on, with his Super Tuesday rally speech emphasizing his unity message, as well as his campaign's resilience.
You cannot beat Trump with the same old kind of politics. What we need is a new politics that brings working class people into our political movement, brings young people into our political movement, and which in November will create the highest voter turnout in American political history.
Sanders went for a somewhat different message at his rally on Tuesday, making his electability case central to the speech, as well as attacking the political establishment. Sanders' emphasis on raising turnout and fulfilling the desire to take a wrecking ball to the political establishment has always been a cornerstone of his political strategy, and if this speech is any indication, he doesn't seem to be changing that anytime soon. However, Sanders' main electability argument has begun to fall away a little bit in recent days. He's always claimed that he could engage younger, more liberal voters, turning out new voters in the general election. However, Tuesday proved that although Bernie was winning with the younger voters, he wasn't able to turn out the quantity of voters he needed to win. Despite this, Sanders continued to attack the same old kind of politics in his speech, a clear jab at Biden's campaign. Bernie's aggressiveness here, as well as Biden's frequent jabs at Bernie, show us what we're likely to see much more of as the days go on. With the race narrowing to what is basically a battle between two veteran politicians, the fight is only likely to get more bitter, as the two become increasingly desperate to gain the final piece of the vote they need to make it over the finish line. How this will end is anyone's guess, but neither looks inclined to give up just yet. But what does this mean for the party as a whole? In some respects, it's too early to tell, but there are a few things that we know at this point. With the narrowing of the field, a brokered convention, a convention in which no candidate has a majority of the pledged delegates, is looking less and less likely. And this is surely a good sign for the party, as that kind of internal strife would not be helpful for Democrats heading into the general election. But depending on how long the race between Sanders and Biden is drawn out, party division could still end up being a big issue for whoever the eventual nominee is. Right now, all we can do is wait for the rest of the primary to play out. But the one thing we do know is that Biden is back in the race. We'll keep you updated on the process as it continues, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when new videos are released. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make all of these videos possible.